Hi guys. So we are starting just a couple of minutes earlier as we always do, just so that myself and Gemma can get connected. I hope everyone's well and staying safe. It's extremely warm here in the UK today, so I'm hoping if you are here, you're enjoying the sun, and wherever else you are, you're also enjoying the weather. There you are, Gem. That was nice and quick. So we're going to be talking all about baking today. So the pros and cons and what the best products are going to be to use. Hello.
Hello.
All right.
How are you? Hello, everyone.
All good. Trying to stay cool. It's so warm.
Yes, we're not used to this weather, are we?
It's the truth. So we just was letting everyone know what we're going to be doing today. We've obviously got half a face done already. So we're going to be doing baking, so using the same powder but in a different application with a different foundation. So I'm going to be working with TV Paint Stick and Gem's going to be working with the Vitacolor. So hopefully we can give you a little bit of knowledge of the difference with your baking, why we bake, and how we're going to bake correctly as well.
Cool, let's get started. Yeah, anyone who has any questions, fire away. We've got a full team with us today to help answer your questions. So if we don't physically answer them, just keep an eye on the comments because there is a full team here to help. Hello, Daniel.
Hi, Dan. We've got everyone on today.
Right, shall we begin?
Yeah, so I'm going to actually start with my base first. What are you doing first? Eyes?
I'll go eyes first then, so people can see.
She's going to start her shopping list. Perfect.
Right,
I hope everyone has a shopping list ready. Yeah, so I'm going to do base first. I'm going to have a quick cleanse just because I've got nothing on, but just to make sure that the base is nice and clean. So you're going to start on eyes first. When you do your base and your baking, so generally when we think about baking, it's to do with like a heavier coverage, isn't it? So we've got a heavier application. So would you always do your eyes first generally, or would you kind of like mix it up depending on what you're doing?
Yeah, I think if I know that I'm going to be baking, I know that I'm wearing a full coverage makeup, and I feel it's very strange to have try and do baking with a minimal makeup. So we're talking about sheer foundations and a light eye. So quite often I'm probably always going to be wearing strong eye makeup with a strong foundation. So that I would personally always do my eyes first. But that's just my preference. It doesn't mean it's a right or a wrong way. Yeah, no,
it's a good point though. If you're going to be using lots of pigment and fallout and things like that, it's just kind of, it makes sense. I am going to do mine in the opposite way. So those that like doing base first, I'm going to show you how you can still do your base, bake, and then do eyes after. So I'm going to go on first of all with my primer. I have more of a dry skin, so I use the Ultra Under Base, which is generally more hydrating to the skin. And because I'm going to work with the TV Paint Stick as well, it's slightly more drier. So I do like to put the hydration back in before I work with the paint stick.
I've already got primers on as well. I've got 2 primers on, and that's another point. I do my eyes first. I like to then allow my primers to really work into my skin. And then I can assess.
Yeah, that's a good point actually. I mean, one question that I do get asked quite a lot, and I'm sure you do as well, is people do have the tendency to worry about things like fine lines around the eyes, around the mouth. I think when we're being realistic about it, we have to always remember if we're putting quite a heavy amount of foundation or quite a, drying powder that's going to give you that baking absorption for your makeup, if you do stuff with quite a lot of lining, you can end up highlighting that. So it's just about being aware of how much to use and where to use it. So if you are going to bake and you do have slightly more mature skin, I would always say try and use something either a bit lighter, so like the HD micro finishing powder, or don't use as much. Just don't put so much on the skin because you're just going to highlight that area.
I think that's a really valid point that you've said, Lee, because that's one of my conscious areas that I've always got fine lines here. So I think selecting the right foundation, if you want full coverage and you want to bake, so you get that longevity in your makeup, then go for a hydrating foundation. So that's why I always use Vitacolor, because it's got such high shine. So the combination, so you can definitely do it, but I think, like what you said, be mindful of how much powder that you're going to put on, and select the correct primers. So for me, I always use the Ultra Underbase, because if you could see on my skin, the side that's not got makeup on, that's hydrating my skin, so that's going to hydrate the area that's a little bit showing those sort of and
like dehydration lines.
Absolutely.
Yeah, perfect. So we've also got some questions coming in. So guys, we do have the team that are going to be helping you, but we're also open to taking questions. So this is actually a really good one, an interesting question. Is baking good, and does it work for dry skin? Well, I would always say, if you're putting powder on the skin, you're doing it to mattify, you're doing it to take any of that oil off the skin. So you're going to end up really highlighting any of that dryness if you do have that on the surface of your skin. I would say prep the skin. That's always kind of like your first go-to. So hydrate with moisturizers, pick the right primer like your Ultra Underbase, and then you can kind of manipulate and work through it. But generally, if you are quite dry, I wouldn't suggest to do like a heavy baking process, because you're going to make the skin look even more dehydrated. Would you agree, Jem?
Yeah, and I think sometimes like you can just watch a video or a tutorial, and they're like, oh yeah, just add your powder, bake here. But they're not talking about the type of foundation they're using, the skin prep they're using. Like, there's all other elements to make sure you achieve the right formula for a baking application.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if we were, be realistic, baking's a technique. It's not something that's going to fundamentally, change your skin type. It's something that you just actually use to adapt and to work with the foundation. So yeah, it's always good to know what you're working on top of as well.
I think it's really important to understand why we bake, when to bake, should everyone be baking? So, the reason that we're going to do the baking is to have longevity in your makeup. And I also find it allows you to build on top, build layers and layers and layers to get more maybe coverage. So something like, not only in beauty makeup do we do baking, we do it in cosmetic camouflage, we do it in theatrical, drag makeup. There's all other elements that we do baking for. Yeah.
And, when we're thinking about baking, what is the main purpose? So we spoke about, obviously, it helps to really lock in the foundation. It stops it from kind of moving. But what's the main reason that we use like a loose powder? If you're thinking about, do I bake with a compact? Do I bake with a loose? What's going to be the benefit from using like a loose powder?
So if your foundation has a higher concentration of like an oil, or it's a foundation that doesn't set, so it's not got like binding agents in that foundation to lock it in, that's when I would suggest maybe using a loose powder, or maybe working it if you're in a hot climate and you really need that longevity and you know that your natural oils are going to come and push through. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I'd say exactly the same. And you need that talc base. You need it to really absorb any of the oil. And if you use a compact, it's just the surface. It's not actually kind of working down into the
locking in. That's it. Yeah, definitely.
So I've just gone on with a whole array of TV paint sticks. So I've got the OB2, which is just as my base, and then the GG and the 043 is my highlight and contour. Now the paint sticks are one of the highest covering foundations, so you will need to make sure that you do fix this really well. You can obviously use it in a more sheerer coverage, so you kind of, again, work it out, how much you're putting on, how much do you need to actually set that foundation. I put on not too much, but you can see more than what I would normally wear day to day, so I am going to have to really bake this in well to make sure it sets.
Okay,
your eyes look gorgeous.
Thank you, honey. I put a little bit of Dermacolor. So Dermacolor is a cosmetic camouflage concealing cream. I always put that underneath my eyes, and I actually put it on my eyelid just because I like that creamy texture and it neutralizes. So that was my first thing I did with shade D51. This is my personal pot, and as you can see, I use this
it's very much used.
It's my best. It's my lifesaver in the mornings, right? When I've got dark circles.
Oh, absolutely.
That was my first step. Then for some reason I do this all the time, and people think I'm a little bit mad, but this is my blusher. It's called Glamour Glow Juicy Moon. And I always put that as my transition colour. Like, you can't even see it now. But
Yeah.
it's a bit like colour correction. I don't know why. It's out of habit. I tend to do that. So I buff that in first.
Yeah.
And now I'm going with my variety palette. This is V6 collection with all of these soft browns, these warm browns, and then I'm deepening. So I'm just sort of working down the grades of the colours and building up the intensity on my eye. So that's where I'm at.
It looks beautiful. So I'm just going to go through, and I've used between a latex wedge and then a blending brush. These brushes are from the Blue Masters range. This is the 8935. They're completely vegan friendly. And when it comes to working with like a heavier cream or liquid based foundation, they just give you such a gorgeous blend to your makeup. And the same with the actual eyeshadow brushes as well. They're just absolutely stunning.
I don't know what I used to use before Blue Master range come out.
Oh, I know. I rarely go to any of my other brushes now. It's kind of just like second nature to go straight to them.
It's just because they give you like this for a blending brush on the eye makeup. It's so, like, the hair is so soft. Yeah, I love that one.
Yeah, they're divine. I'm going to have a look at a couple of questions before I start to bake my face. Let's have a look.
Start cooking.
It always makes me hungry when I say that.
And I think the word baking, by the way, can we just talk about that?
Yeah.
I think people think that that's a new technique. And it's not. It's been around forever. It's just, I think...
Yeah, without showing our age, Jim. Yeah, no, it's true. It's definitely not it's not something new, especially when you think about like the theatrical sector and things like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the questions was, what is the best way to actually bake when you're working with tools? I'm actually going to start using it now so you'll be able to see. So first of all, I've actually just taken 2 of the translucent powders. I have the TL4 and TL3. So one is the yellow base, which is your TL4, and one is slightly, ooh, took too much out there. One is more pinky, which is your TL3. Depending on skin tone, I'd say your TL3 generally works pretty well if you're more of a fair to medium skin. If you're extremely fair, then the TL1, the completely colourless, is going to be the most beneficial. And then your TL4 works really well from anything from olive skin tone up to Afro-Caribbean. So if you've got a much more richer, warmer skin tone, the TL4 works really, really well to kind of lift and brighten underneath the eye. So before I go in, I just want to make sure as well that I don't have any creases. If you go in with your powder and you bake that crease in, you're never going to get that out again. So you need to make sure it looks as seamless as possible.
Nice tip. That's so true.
Oh, only because I've made the mistake so many times, and then I have this line that sits there and it irritates me.
You've baked it in.
I've baked it in. I've locked it in there. So application-wise, I'd say powder puff all the time. It's absolutely one of my favourite ways to actually use it. I feel like a brush just doesn't do the same job. Like, you can really roll this into the foundation and you can really lock it into the skin, and it just gives you that durability. I don't feel like I've done it right if I don't have a powder puff, so I always use that just to really kind of press that into the skin.
Well, that's, yeah, you need to really lock it in, don't you, in order for it to have that longevity. So just by dusting it on with a brush, like over the top,
yeah, you're just hitting the surface, right? You might as well use a compact powder and just like finish off your makeup. This is to actually fix it. And that's the way I always remember. If I'm just going to kind of top up the makeup, if I'm just going to kind of slightly finish it to like give it a little polished finish, then I'll use a compact. And if I'm going to really fix it like you would with a fixing spray, I would use a loose powder. So I'm going to leave that on there just to kind of do its thing.
How long are you going to bake for?
Well, I'm going to start my eyes, so I'm going to kind of leave it on there for a little bit. The only thing I find though, if you leave it on for too long and you are someone with a drier skin, it will eventually, the longer you leave it, the longer it will start to dry your skin out. So you do need to be mindful of that as well. So if you are quite dry, I'd say just leave it on for a couple of minutes and take it off. If you're quite oily, leave it on while you do your whole eye makeup. And as well, if you get any fallout, it will just drop onto the powder, which helps. So I'm just going to do a couple of things.
I think that's a really valid point, because depending on what you're baking as well. So we're using baking today in a beauty aspect. But for example, if you were covering a tattoo, you would have to bake for at least 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's because you are setting one of your many layers, and that's what baking's for, is so you can build up.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the thing, it's knowing like the product you're using and also like the, you know, why you're using it. So I'm just going to go on with a little bit of the Derma Camouflage Cream, and it's in the shade D62, which I'm using all over the lids, more as a kind of concealer and priming base.
Yeah, that's what I did, the same. Use Derma colour.
Yeah, it just helps to kind of get rid of any of that darkness.
So I've put this copper on my eyes, which is Living Colour. If you want like these gorgeous shines, this is the product here. Let me just swatch it for you so you can see closer. Here we are. So this is beautiful, like a loose pigment. I've just pressed that on this part of my eye. Oh, and I've just dropped it everywhere. That's why I don't do my base first. Because I can be a little bit clumsy. And then I've taken face liner number 10 black in my waterline. So that's the really deep colour. And that's because I do want my eyes to be strong, because the foundation I put on was quite heavy. So it also needs to marry in with one another. Yeah. And then from my Variety Palette V6, this colour here is my deep black. And that's what I have used on top, underneath my eyes as well.
Nice. So just quickly with my bit, and then we'll answer some more questions because we've got tons coming through. So just to set the concealer, because the one thing with the camouflage creams, they don't self-set, as the purpose is to kind of be able to work with them and manipulate them and layer them. So I'm just using a tiny little bit of the translucent powder again. This one's in TL1. So this is another way that you can help when you're doing your eye makeup. Like, you don't have to only bake your face. You can also use it to set concealers. If you're working with cream-based eyeshadows, you can also use just the completely colourless translucent powder, and you can really fix and bake your eyeshadow in as well, which is quite nice.
Yeah, I think the translucent powder, it almost puts like a silky finish on top. Yeah. So when you blend your eyeshadows in, it's even more like the application's easier.
Yeah, it just literally you can see I'm doing it here. It like literally glides just over, and you don't catch on any of that cream. And that is just one of the shades that I'm using from the V6 palette. I think everyone can tell it's our favourite palette. I think we use it a lot.
Are you using V6 as well?
I am. I'm just using it for my transition, just to kind of blend. So a question that we had was, would you bake and set moisturiser? What would you say with that?
Moisturiser? Yeah. My initial reaction and answer to that would be no. Yeah. Because you've put moisture on your skin to add moisture, and to bake on top of that will take away. It sort of defeats the objective.
Yeah,
the purpose. Yeah,
I think if you're concerned about having like an oily skin, just maybe be aware to do just a small amount of moisturiser, and then, you know, when it comes to primer, use something that's more mattifying down your T-zone. But you're going to put foundation on top, so there's really no point baking your moisturiser to then have to put foundation back over the top of it.
But I think keep your skin as hydrated as possible, because if you're going to be adding doing the baking technique, if you're worried about your skin looking matte or dry and highlighting any fine lines, so that's my personal preference. So I don't like my skin, if the paint stick for me, Leanne, would be too drying on my skin type. So that's why I select Vitacolor.
Yeah, exactly. You have to choose what's kind of a personal preference. We actually just got asked, are we using Kryolan eyeshadow? Of course we are using Kryolan eyeshadow. I'll show you the two palettes that I'm working with. These are my two absolute favourites as well.
We've probably got the same, right?
These two. So the one trick, if you've ever used our eyeshadows and you feel like you haven't got a good transfer of colour, or you've struggled with them, they're basically a pure pressed pigment, so they're extremely strong and vivid, but you need to always make sure you have something like a primer or a cream base down to actually be able to build your eyeshadow. And that kind of goes across the board anyway. You just need something for that pigment to stick to and to build on top of. So yes, this is all Kryolan.
For mine, although I've got all these shimmers that I'm putting now as my highlight, is satin powder. So if you haven't tried these are delicious little pots of dreams. when I did my top 10, this is one of my top 10 of Krylon products, just because I love anything sparkly and shiny.
Yeah, you're a magpie.
I certainly am, but anyone else like sparkly stuff like me?
I'm sure.
I'm so hot right now. And
I know, it's honestly, it's been the hottest day of the year. Like, it's 27 here, and for us in the UK, that's like being on holiday.
Well, this is a good test, right? Because
we're not melting yet.
I feel like I am melting inside, so this is proving that baking is working for me. All right, I've lost my train of thought. What am I doing? Right, I am going to add this. So, continuing with my magpie pigments of glitter and shimmers, I am going to add this product now. Let me see if I can throw. There we are. Pure Pigment Metallics. This is the color Pure Green, and I'm going to mix it. So Pure Pigment Metallics are in its purest form. I'm just going to add a couple of drops of this product here called Cake Eyeliner Sealer. So I mix the pigment with this product and it becomes like a liquid. Let me just get it mixed before I show you. If everyone asks me what the ratio is, I just keep mixing it until I get a good creamy consistency. So it shouldn't be dry and it shouldn't be too runny. Okay.
Yeah, kind of like
so now if I just show you on the back of my hand, you can paint with it. So that's what I'm going to put onto my eyes, just in my bottom lash line and waterline. And this is completely smudge proof and then like water resistant.
Okay, this is actually a really good baking test, right? So generally, where my skin is dry, the powder will sit there and it'll be very visible for a long period of time. Because I'm actually quite warm and my skin's warming up, you can see where the foundation's getting a little bit more oilier from my heat. It's starting to absorb all of that powder and it's starting to kind of fade away. So if you are more of an oilier skin, you might find that happens, that you put up quite a bit on and then it starts to disappear. If that's the case, I would say put a little bit more on, because you need it until the point where you can't actually see the powder starting to, you know, disappear too much. So what I'm going to do now, because I don't want to get too many harsh lines either, is just take that off my surface.
Your skin looks incredible. It looks flawless.
That's TV Paint Stick for you. It's like a filter in a little stick. Amazing. I actually asked a question of what colours I use. So it was 043 for the contour, GG for highlight, and then the OB2 for my base. And that's just because it obviously suits my complexion. So you'll have a little play around and see. What am I doing? I'm losing my train of thought now. Right, I'm going to go back into this palette. So just before I do my eyes, actually, I'm going to finish my base, because then you're going on to base, aren't you? I'm just going to amp up my contour by using the Dual Finish palette in the modelling. ODS4 is the shade that I'm going to use just to bring that contour out a little bit more. And these work really, really well with the TL powders. So if you find that the skin's looking either a little bit dry, the Dual Finish are great because they're so creamy. They help just to blend and bring everything together.
I think it's important that like we explain that I don't feel like baking is effective if you were using one of the Krylon sheer foundations, like such as the HD Micro Foundation,
yeah,
tinted moisturizer, because none of these what's the other option we can ultra fluid foundation,
yeah,
most of these are water based and they're self-setting. So to then create a baking technique on them, there's not enough oil in these foundations to absorb and to then lock in and set. So I do personally think that baking with a translucent powder is more suitable for Supracolor, TV Paint Stick and Vitacolor.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. Okay, so my base is pretty much done. So that highlight that I just popped on is, again, one of our favourites, which is the satin powder. And this is in SP331. It's like my new go-to highlighter. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, you used that the other day, and I don't have that. So I'm very, very jealous. So Leanne did the satin powder on her cheeks. I've used it on my eyelids here, on my high points.
Okay, so for baking, most of us using yellow powder, or can we use any? Okay, so with the yellow based powders, basically with them, it's more if you've got a warmer complexion. If you end up putting something on like the TL3, which is more pink, or the translucent, and you have a much darker skin, it will just look grey. So the whole purpose of using the TL4, it just adds more warmth back into your skin so it doesn't look too grey and ashy.
Yeah, so you can do colour correction with your translucent powders. So even if after a while you may find that your foundation is oxidised, or you've just got a colour match that's slightly off and you don't have time, you might be working on applying, you can quickly adapt the foundation by setting on top with the translucent powder, and colour corrects that way. So you can neutralise or add warmth to the foundation with baking as well.
Yeah, exactly. So what have you done for your brows, Jem?
My brows are my pet hate, especially when I'm looking at you and your full brow.
No, mine just need a good trim. They're absolutely like gone crazy. But you've done a different technique with yours though lately, haven't you? You kind of
I
like...
haven't done that today though, Lee, because I want to do that on my next live when we talk about smudge proof.
Ooh, love it.
Yes, I'm going to give people some options and make you come back. I'm using the eyebrow powder in the shade dark. So it's got like a wax base, and I'm really hot, so hopefully that wax is going to stay in. And then what I do is I take the eyebrow forming gel and just lift my eyebrow hair, because I have very sparse eyebrows. So by lifting them gives that expression that is a little bit fuller.
Yeah.
Why you guys never touch your neck area? We do. We make our coloured necks browner.
Yeah, it's probably because we're so quick and talking all the time. But yeah, we always kind of bring it down onto your neck as well. You don't want to have a different colour face to your neck. That's never a good thing. So the colours that we've used on our eyes, I've been using a bit of a mixture. So from the V6, I've just gone in with slightly more of the red brown and the kind of tiramisu colour. And then I've also used from the Variety 2 Bright palette, the red. So they're kind of literally the only colours I've used at the moment, just to get that kind of smoky red finish to my eyes.
I'm really greedy when it comes to eyeshadow. I'm like an artist, and I'll just keep picking up colours and blending.
Yeah, exactly.
And gradients. So when people go, how many colours? What colours are you using on your eyes?
Too many.
Does anyone else like that? I just get so greedy sometimes, especially for smoky eye, because I think you need the gradients, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. So I am going to go in and just pop a little bit of a cut crease in, nothing too heavy, just something so I get that nice kind of peak on my lids. And this is just using the D62 Derma Camouflage Cream, and I'm just going to kind of build that up.
I'm at a little bit of liner with the black eyeliner, liquid one.
I love
I'm not making too much of a feature of this, actually. I just want it to... Sorry if I'm blocking. I hope you can see. Me and you have gone quiet because we're concentrating on lines.
Just trying to make sure I get a bit of balance. I don't want to look like I've got boss eyes.
I'm actually waiting for my green to dry in my bottom of along here, and I'm going to add now my satin powder, the same one that I used on my brow bone, on top, and it gives it another dimension. Nice.
Okay, I'm going to do some more questions because we do have so many. Should we use cream-based powder on mature skin? So yeah, I wouldn't say that this technique that we're doing today is going to be the best for mature skin, because you are going to be working and contending with more texture, more fine lines. And like we said, if you really fix in a line, you're going to make it more obvious and you're going to see it more. So I would say stick to something like the Dual Finish palette for mature skin. This gives more of like a soft airbrush finish to your makeup, rather than using like a heavy translucent.
Or the Ultra Cream powder is a really nice one for mature skin. Or if you wanted to, it's like maybe you could go for the Micro Finish powder as well if you did want to bake.
Absolutely, yeah. The micro finishing powder is going to be like your go-to. If I'm having like a really bad day, dry skin, dehydration lines, I would always go straight to the HD before I'd go to the translucent. So I'm just going to go in with a little bit more of that deeper aubergine from the V6 palette, just to carve it out a little bit more. The highlight that I'm wearing is the SP331. So it's actually a satin powder, which is just a loose pigment, but I use it for pretty much everything. and it works stunning. It's got like this really gorgeous kind of rosy, pinky, peachy colour, so it works nice as a blusher as well.
Yeah, I'm definitely getting that. It looks so nice on you.
Yeah, it's my new go-to for sure. I used to be obsessed with Glamour Glow. Now I've gone over to the satin powder for the highlight. So I'm just going to set my eyelids now. I'm going to actually use the HD Living Colour, so similar to what Gemma used, but I'm just going to use it in the rose quartz, which is really gorgeous. It's like a mix of pearl and pink. And I'm just going to step that on top if I can find a brush. I'm so bad when it comes to brushes. I use like a million for like one thing. That one will do.
You can never have too many brushes, Leanne.
I know, but you know when you think, okay, just use one for one thing. Instead I use like 3 for like the same colour. It's ridiculous.
I think that's a good sign of a good artist there.
Just lazy.
Oh, I've got a bit of fallout there.
So yeah, I'm just going to pack that in. So if you are going to start continuously using more like loose pigments and you are worried about fallout, especially if you've done it the way round that I have, doing eyes after base, just pop a little bit of the loose powder underneath your eye, and that can just help to kind of promote any of that from falling out too much.
Yeah, lots of people do that, don't they? They put a layer of powder underneath the eye.
Yeah.
And then they work happily, let all the loose pigment fall.
Yeah.
I personally, I can't, I hate it. Yeah. I would rather it fall onto my skin and remove it away.
Yeah, cool.
So I just find it goes a little bit like muddy, like dirty, personally. Yeah.
It's definitely more practical. I think just be mindful of what you're using. I mean, if you're only using light pigments, or if you're going to use something that doesn't tend to have too much fallout, you've not got too much of an issue. But if you're using like deep blacks and heavy pigments, then yeah, you're going to be wasting more time trying to, you know, clean up.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I'm using the black eyeshadow and I had fallout here, but I ain't going to worry about that. But if that was to have fallen on top of the powder, then I think sweeping it away. Well, that's just my personal preference. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. I don't know.
Listen, there's no wrong and right in makeup. That's why it's so much fun, because you can just play around. If it works, it works. And that's the one thing I always like to say to people. I hate the whole kind of pressure that people have, that they feel they have to follow this like meticulous, you know, way of doing makeup. I think if it works for you and it looks good, then we're all good. It's fine.
Absolutely.
You can always wash it off if it goes wrong. That's the best thing about it. It's not like surgery. it's not like filler and Botox where you're kind of stuck with it.
I don't know. Some of my clients do think I'm going to do surgery. So.
I think we've all got them clients. Everyone's had one of those in their chair.
Give me a thumbs up if you've had that. They want.
Okay, we've got a few questions. So, so is baking good for summer season? Yes, I would say if you're going to be wearing a heavy foundation, or if you're oilier skin during summer seasons, then baking is going to be much more beneficial to do. However, if you're only wearing a really lightweight foundation, a tinted moisturizer, then there's no point of using it. But if you're going to be having a full coverage, then yes, in the summer it's going to be needed.
I think it's great. Like if you've got a special occasion to go to, like quite often a wedding, and you want to have a full face glam makeup, and you know you're gonna be in a hot climate, or it's just a long day, isn't it, of wearing a full face makeup, then I personally would go for the baking. But just make sure that you're using the correct foundation that requires baking. Yeah. So that I think is the most important part of it, and then the technique of how you're going to achieve that good results for a long-lasting effect.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, we've got more questions. Let's see.
Sorry, I'm concentrating so much on my eye makeup.
No,
I feel
you're
like
fine.
I've looked at the questions.
So we've done what you're using on your brows. Okay, so what can we do to prevent creasing? Unfortunately, we can't absolutely eliminate the fact that the foundation's never going to crease. I mean, our faces are the most mobile part. We talk all the time, we're moving our eyes all the time, so we can't guarantee that it's never going to actually crease. But the main thing is just locking it in correctly. So using a powder puff, using a loose powder rather than a compact, they're going to be the best ways to actually really fix your makeup in. So we can't say it's never going to crease, but it's going to have more of a durability and less likely to crease with using a loose powder and a powder puff.
I think I'm a good example because I'm an oily person that does require powdering. I definitely have lots of fine lines and I have the laughter line here, but I think the combination of using the really oily hydrating foundation, then locking it in with the baking powder, has proved that it's not going to constantly sit in those creases. So just be mindful of the primer that you're going to select. It's a whole process till you get to that baking. Yeah. I'm talking of baking. I am baking.
And I am literally roasting hot. I can't even tell you. I've got the ring lights on as well, and I can't have the window open because I've got so many kids that are running around outside. So it'll be a little bit distracting.
I bet everyone else in the hot countries are thinking, "What are you two talking about?"
Yeah, they're used to it. We're not.
I have to take a tissue here.
So when working on HD film and camera, is it advisable to use baking with a HD powder? Yes, I would say if you're going to be working for TV and film, you always want to go for more of your high definition based products. However, we work so much on set with our campaigns and all different shoots that we do, and we've also used the translucent and it's absolutely fine. The one thing you just need to be mindful of when you're working with powders is that they don't have things that have, you know, SPF, zinc oxide, titanium oxide, because they're the things that give you flashback through photography. When I do any photography based makeup and I'm doing baking underneath the eyes, I would always suggest to use something with a little bit of warmth. So whether you're using the TL3 or the TL4, because sometimes using the completely transparent one, because it has that white talc base to it, it can look like you're having flashback, but it's not. It's just the powder itself. So yes, use HD if you can. If not, the translucents work. Just use a slightly warmer shade than what you necessarily use, you know, rather than translucent.
I think as well, like when you're working in like TV and film, quite often you as the makeup artist, you're there up to hand, but you're on set. So I think I would rather keep not powdering and baking too much, because once you've powdered and baked, it's very hard to then go back in and manipulate foundation or correct a fallout. So quite often I avoid powder altogether and just take away the shine where it needs or where it's picking up on camera. So often you're going in, you're doing touch-ups. So I personally wouldn't bake, but that's through my experience.
I think it just depends on the makeup application. If you've got someone in your chair that wants a really full-on heavy glam makeup, or if you're having someone that's performing, singing under lights, and then of course you're going to want to bake,
isn't it?
But practically, if it's something that you can touch up, like you said, there's absolutely no need for it. It's kind of like an unnecessary step. Okay, so we've had a question: how do we stop wasting any powder? What I would say is when you open up your packaging, only take off half of the sticker. If you take the full sticker off, it has more chance then to escape out of the little sieve holes. So I only literally take off just a little corner of mine, and it just then keeps it all in the actual compact and stops it from flying absolutely everywhere.
Okay, so you can see by my foundation in comparison to Leanne's that mine has a lot more of a glossy dew, and that's the Vitacolor that I'm using. I always go like a one shade lighter, just so that when I come to do like my contouring, my bronzer, I get a good contrast and it really then pops. I feel that if I go one shade lighter, it brightens my complexion. So this is the shade ELO. If you've never tried Vitacolor before, you need the smallest amount. It is full coverage foundation. Like that is still how much I've got on the back of my hand, and I probably, because I'm used to putting it on for a full face. So I've used combination. I've got the Blue Master brush 8928, which is like a flat brush, and I'm just using like the tip. I don't really need any more, but the only reason why I've taken this smaller brush is because I know I need to manipulate around my eye makeup and be careful around all of here. Then I'm taking my Unicorn Perfector sponge. It's completely dry, by the way. I haven't dampened this. People do, but I don't know. There's something I prefer to keep this dry when I'm working with Vitacolor.
I think it's got enough oil in the foundation anyway to make it slightly more moist, hasn't it? So you don't really need to dampen it. It's actually interesting what you just said there, though, about the quite like comparison in our foundation, how yours is much more glossier due to the Vitacolor. One thing you do need to remember as well, when you're doing baking, you are technically mattifying the makeup. So if you don't want to have such a matte finish, just be mindful of not to put it in certain areas, like on the cheeks, or if you don't want the cheekbone to be too matte. But the main places you really kind of want to bake is like under your eyes, smile lines, and just under the cheekbone. But if you want a full matte finish, then you can just use the powder all over. So whatever foundation you use, if you bake it, is going to mattify it.
Okay, so I'm going to use a combination to conceal a little bit more and to highlight. This is my Dermacolor mini palette, and I don't know if you can see the light, but this is the Fair collection, so they're quite light shades. And this colour I've swatched out is called DO. It's a quite a bright light yellow undertone, and I love this to brighten under my eyes. I'm going to use the same brush because this oil in this from the Vitacolor now will help to sort of manipulate my Dermacolor and make that a little bit more workable as well. And plus the excess in what's in my brush is probably just now going to only go a couple of shades lighter. So I'm just going to place that now under my eyes, and I've changed my action. I don't know if you noticed before I was sweeping, now I'm just dabbing that on.
Nice. So I've just whizzed ahead and I've just put some lashes and liquid liner and inner waterline. So I just used the liquid eyeliner just for the top line. It's more to hide the band of the lash really, which is the TV4 set. Again, another one of my favourite lashes.
I've got TV4 on.
Have you? So they're so good.
So excited.
They're good because they're enough, but they're not too much. I mean, even though I've got a lot of eye space, my eyes are quite round, so I don't like to hide them too much. And then I've gone in just with the HD cream liner. So if you have baked already and you don't want to worry about the fallout, especially when it comes to doing the under eye makeup, I would go in with the cream liners because you don't have any of that powder falling anywhere, and anything you've put on top, it sticks and connects straight away to the concealer anyway. So this one's in the aubergine, and it kind of matches in quite nicely into that outer contour. And then just to soften the edge, because I don't want it to be too harsh, I've gone in with the Sweet Plum, just from the Glamour Glow palette, just to kind of blend across under the eye. And again, you don't get fallout from the Glamour Glow, so it's a little technique there if you are worried about fallout.
I just see a question pop up saying, do you dampen your Dermacolor? No, under my eyes I don't. I just make sure I always warm Dermacolor up before applying. But I do know artists that do dampen, so it's not a wrong answer if you prefer to work that way.
Yeah, I think it's all personal preference, isn't it? Some people like to warm it on the back of their hand. Some people like to have a damp sponge or brush.
So I'm actually now contouring with TV Paint Stick, and I've gone for the shade DIN. It's actually a really dark tone. But the reason why I go for a paint stick is it's a little bit drier. If I took a Vitacolor and tried to do my contour, I feel like it's all too oily. Yeah. So I prefer to do the concealer and the contour with a few of like the drier products, which is your Dermacolor and your TV Paint Stick. When I say drier, I mean like just drier as in comparison to the shine of the Vitacolor.
Slightly more matte. It's not dry where your skin's going to kind of look.
Yeah. So that's a really bad way to describe it.
I got what you meant.
Thank you.
I'm just going to put a little bit of mascara on just to marry the false lashes in with my natural.
So we always say to performers as well, if they're maybe performing on stage and they're going to be, you know, dancing or costume change under stage lighting that's going to generate a lot of heat, we always suggest Supracolor or TV Paint Stick followed by the translucent powder and bake it, allow it. It doesn't matter so much for stage if you start to look too heavy and cakey, because your natural oils and you start to perspire will reduce that straight away.
Yeah.
Right, I'm going in for my baking now. I'm going to go for TL1, which has got no colouring whatsoever. This is a 20-gram pot, and this also comes in a big 60-gram pot, and I think we do a 500-gram pot.
Yeah,
if you're working in like a big production, and that's not going to go around 50 people, you can buy it in mass bulk, which is great. You can just go like this with the powder.
Yeah, just dip your head into it. Done. Fully baked.
There's your baking. Okay, and I like to work with these powder puffs. So Leanne used a round one. I love these triangle ones because then I can just pinpoint exactly where I want to apply my powder. Just tap off your excess, and then I'm gonna I'll just put it onto the back of my hand, and I'm pressing it in my hand, so I'm loading my powder puff, so I'm not gonna get loads of fallout.
Yeah, they're really great just to get in those little inner corners. I haven't got one of those.
I thought you was going to say nooks and crannies there.
Well, I was, but then I thought maybe not.
You was, didn't you?
I was. Okay, I'm just going to finish my lip and then I can go over to questions because I'm pretty much done. And I've just gone in with a second bake just to kind of touch up, just because it is quite warm today. So if you do need to go in and touch up again, you absolutely can. Just don't go and touch up if you've already done fixing spray, because then it's going to just be a little bit of a disaster.
So I'm going to take this underneath my contour, and that will brighten this area as well. So if you're happy with your colour choices of your foundation and your contouring, you don't need to change the colour. Like, just stick with TL1. If you've got a darker complexion, then maybe this would go a little bit ashy, so then select a different tone. So see here on my shine, I'm just going to press this on and reduce that nicely now. I don't worry about putting too much on because I like my oils will come back through. Yeah.
That's the thing, like with mine, if I put too much on, my skin will literally look like a sandpaper, so I have to be really careful. I literally forgot to do my eyebrows as well. Like, how terrible would that have been? Okay, let me do this one. So I'm just using a little bit of eyebrow forming gel. Just tame these beasts.
Can anyone else see shine? I think I've got shine coming through this skin.
Oh, I like a bit of shine though.
Yeah, but for baking, I know that, say I'm now about to go out in this hot weather that we're dealing with.
You're going to be even more shiny.
Yeah, I need to make sure I've locked that in, because that's potentially can come back through, and then it'll be a good shine, like a good balance, not just I look oily and greasy.
Yeah, it's glow, not grease. That's kind of how we want. That's what we want to go with.
Glow, not grease. Okay, so I could leave this on for maybe 5 minutes. So while I do that, I'm gonna do my lips.
Yeah, it's like when you go to the gym and you get that really lovely glow. Okay, so you've left yours on while you're doing your lips. So this is a really good point as well, guys. Like, when you're doing baking, think about what you can be doing next. So start doing your lips, or go and do eyes like I done, and give that time then to actually allow the product to settle in. Because if you only leave it on the surface and then take it straight off, you're not baking. You've kind of like missed the whole point. So I'm pretty much done. I am going to use
that shimmer on your cheeks. Oh, come to the camera again, close.
It's amazing, ain't it? I love it.
What colour is it again?
SP331.
331.
Yeah, it was just, I stumbled across it. Do you know what this whole lockdown has done? Like, obviously we've been with the brand for so long. We've got over 16,000 plus products within the line. You kind of get into a habit of kind of going to your favourites and not playing with colours so much, like especially on yourself personally, like creatively, of course you do. But for me, I found like a new love for different colours. I found new products that I really like. So, you know, there's always been like a good plus side to the whole kind of lockdown. I feel like I've experienced a whole new range of Kryolan.
Nice.
What foundation is Gemma using? She is using the Vitacolor, so it's the more glossier foundation, as it gives more kind of like a glow. But when you do set and bake the foundation, you can mattify it. So it depends on what finish that you like. Then we also have, can I use Dermacolor fixing powder over TV paint stick? Yes, you absolutely can. Again, it's a really great absorbing powder. It gives water resistancy. We will be doing a whole sector on the Dermacolor powder, so you know, come back and tune in to see that, because we will be doing a whole demonstration on the Dermacolor range. But yes, you can. Is a dry or damp sponge better? I would say it's down to more of a personal preference. I would say when you're actually using the powder and you're baking, you probably want to go with more of a drier powder puff, because if you add too much moisture into your translucent powder or any loose powder, you're going to make it kind of go, what's the word for it, like
Congeal.
Congeal, yeah. It will kind of like go into like a clagginess. I don't know how to explain it. Like it'll go into like toothpaste. That's the only way I can think of it. So yeah, I would go in with a dry sponge when you're doing bakings because you don't want to put moisture into the powder. The whole purpose is the powder to
messy like a paste. That's the one. Thank you.
Right, what else do we have? Okay, so again, the highlighter that I'm using is SP331. It's a satin powder. It's just a loose pigment. You can use it for your eyeshadow. You can use it for highlighter, blusher. You can use it on the body, on the lips. It's completely multi-purpose. What else do we have?
I'm going to put satin powder to copy you on mine. I just want to be Leanne.
No, you're just greedy when it comes to product. You like anything that shimmers and sparkles. That's what you like.
Like, how have I not heard this in my life? I don't understand.
Oh, I know. I've only just come across it too. Okay, so is TV Paint Stick good for oily skin for bridal makeup? Yes, it is. So if you're working on someone that's slightly more oilier, especially for a bridal day, it needs to be something that's long lasting. The TV Paint Sticks are amazing for that. And again, you don't need to use too much. I think when people think of TV Paint Stick, they think of like heavy coverage, but it's not. Like I only have such a sheer amount on. Have we?
No, it's okay. We're all good.
All good. So yeah, just put a sheer amount on. It's actually down to your baking that gives you the long last as well. So yes, TV Paint Sticks are absolutely perfect for bridal makeup. I'm just going back.
I've just taken off my excess powder, by the way. There wasn't actually much to take off because my skin and the oil of the foundation has absorbed it all, which is quite nice. Now, the one thing I must recommend after you have done your baking with your translucent powder is that you should really continue with powdered products. Don't think, oh, I'm going to put a cream bronzer or a cream blusher.
Yeah.
That's going to get the paste again.
The paste.
So continue. So I'm going to go, I used it at the beginning, at the start, which is the Juicy Moon. As you can see, it's my ultimate favourite blusher. Leanne, you know how much I love this.
Yes, you do.
So, and this has an ingredient called mica, which is just it adds a little bit of glossy shine back into the skin, which I just love.
Yeah, just brings it to life again. I think that's the thing people worry about a lot as well. Using such a heavy powder, it can dull the skin. So using things with mica, with iridescence, and again, like Gemma said, make sure it's a powder base. You don't want to be putting things like cream on if you've already powdered, because it's just going to completely break down. One question we just had was in relation to the colours that I chose for the outer corner of my eyeshadow. When you choose eyeshadow colours, when you're combining, you always just need to remember, if you're going to do anything to depthen colour, to contour or to enhance, all your darker colours should really kind of sit on the outer corner, because if you bring them too far in, you can end up really closing up the eyes. So I just went in with a little bit of the Aubergine from the V6 palette. And then I also used a little bit of the deep black. You can tell how much I used it. It's like nearly gone. And I've just used that on the very outer corner just to fade through with the eyeliner that I put down, just to give more of a softer finish, because I didn't want to put a wing in today. I wanted it a little bit more softer.
I'm just copying Leanne.
You can't resist. You just have to have the shine.
Sorry, I look really ugly when I laugh, so that's why I'm hiding.
Oh, stop it. No, you don't. You've got a gorgeous smile.
Lots of teeth come out.
We've both got a lot of teeth. It's fine. It's better than having
anyway, I've gone for the same gold that I put on my eyes, and just hopefully that's all married in nicely. Just wanted to be the out.
Stop it. Right, so which shade will be one shade lighter than Oriental? Off the top of my head, I want to say FS40. Would you agree?
I'd have to look off the top of my head.
Yeah,
I
would say
quite
FS40.
warm, isn't it? Yeah, FS40, 100%.
Yeah. So FS40 is very near to Oriental, but it's definitely a lot more cooler. It's definitely not got as much kind of rich warmth in there. Hope that helps. And I think we've kind of gone through all the questions. So just making sure I haven't skipped any. So you've done your fix and spray, yeah?
Yeah, and really important. There's no point adding fix and spray unless you have powdered and baked. Don't go foundation then that, because all that's not going to lock in your foundation. Your baking is to lock and keep that into place. This is going to make it more smudge resistance, but it has to go on top of powder. So that is after powdering.
Yeah, amazing. So we've gone through all the questions. So guys, we hope that all helps. Oh, I think I've just had one pop through. What's the shine on your lips, Gem?
This is High Gloss Toffee.
Lovely. Yeah, so if you want to kind of just highlight and amplify the lips, then that's a really gorgeous colour to work with. Yeah, so we hope that helped and answered all of your questions. This story is going to be saved onto Krylon Official's IGTV. So anyone that did come a little bit later on in the session, or if you just want to recap over, please have a look. Myself and Gemma will also make sure we put a product list up for you guys to have a look at. And yeah, thanks again for coming. We always enjoy having our little chats with you guys. And we'll be back again on, what day are we? Friday. So we're back on Friday for another live.
Thank you everyone so much. We love doing these lives, and I hope you enjoy them as well. If you have any questions, just DM us, Krylon Official, or you can message us privately. We will help with anything, the products that we've used. Yes, hope you've enjoyed. Get baking because it's hot. Well, it's hot. I
am baking. I'm really baking.
I wish I could show you my sweat patches right now.
Oh, I tell you, make me laugh and my eyes go. Yeah, so anyway, guys, have a lovely rest of your evening or morning wherever you are in the world. Stay safe and stay at home, hopefully for not too much longer. But we will be joining you back again at Friday at 4 p.m.
Thanks,
guys. See you later. Bye, Jem.
Bye. Bye, Lee.